So there were many kids in this theater that were scratching their heads at a lot of the comedy in this movie. That could be a good thing for you or a bad thing. For me, it was a good thing. Mr. Peabody and Sherman is based off the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon segment from the 50s and 60s called Peabody's Improbable History. It was the story of the smartest being alive, which just so happened to be a dog named Mr. Peabody, who adopts a young boy named Sherman. He goes to court about it, he visits the president about it, he's able to legally adopt this son in that cartoon, and in this movie it's basically the exact same thing. He's the smartest thing alive, he never really got along with the other dogs at the dog pound because he just wanted to read books, he didn't want to fetch. And in this movie they have something called the Wayback. It's a time machine in which they go to various times in history, always in the past, never in the future, and he uses it to teach Sherman about history. And when Sherman meets this girl at school who eventually convinces him to use the Wayback Machine, time and history gets altered and they have to figure out a way to go back to fix that. Now, I was looking forward to this movie because it comes from the director of The Lion King, which is one of my favorite animated films of all time. It looked very funny, it looked like it had humor for adults and kids, and it does. It has a lot of humor for adults and kids. In fact, as I said in my intro, there were many times in this movie where kids did not get the jokes, and I can tell you that for sure because I went to this movie with a friend of mine and he brought his 2 daughters. They're very young, and even though they enjoyed the movie, for the most part they were scratching their heads at a lot of the jokes. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing because kids may not enjoy this movie, but at the same time I can see them being very entertained by its overall action and adventure-esque feel. And it's also good because as a parent or as a guardian or whoever, you can take your kid home and then explain the various historical significance of these events, and they can actually learn something from it too. And it's also cool for an adult to go to this movie and be able to laugh a lot, recognizing that a lot of these jokes are actually made just for them. And while I enjoyed the movie overall, it did have a few problems. For one, I feel like a lot of the characters in this movie aren't as smart as the movie is trying to be. The movie is trying to be very clever and extremely smart with a lot of its historical references and time jumping and back and forth. It gets a little messy and a little convoluted sometimes, but the characters in the movie are so cookie cutter stupid. Like the evil woman who just wants to take Sherman away from Mr. Peabody and everything is evil to her, and then all the people at the end of the movie who accept every insanely crazy thing that's going on around them as fact without questioning it at all. It has the syndrome lately that I've been referring to as the wildly acceptive syndrome, where you just see insane events and you just, oh, okay, I get it, that's how it is, I believe it. I Frankenstein had that with the scientist who accepted the existence of Frankenstein and all these gargoyles and everything in an instant. This movie has that too, except this is a children's family film, so I'm able to buy that a lot more. Those are a couple nitpicky elements to it. There are times in the movie where it did feel like the characters were really annoying, but for the most part I had a lot of fun with Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I thought it was a clever film that was pretty funny, and I thought that the action was handled really well. One of my favorite elements to this movie is definitely the Trojan horse segment. I think some of the characters in that segment are very funny. One of the things I noticed was as it goes back to different eras, it tributes like the most famous movie of that type of thing that they are doing. Like when they go back to Egyptian times and they're in this room treasure hunting and having to step on all of these things just correctly, even though Indiana Jones took place in like the 30s, they definitely tribute Indiana Jones throughout that scene. In the Trojan horse segment, there's a lot of 300 references. For the most part, I really enjoyed Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I think it's a fun movie that kids can enjoy, that families can enjoy. It's not a classic like the director's Lion King, but it's still an enjoyable film that I think a lot of people are going to have fun with. I'm going to give it a B-. So guys, if you see the movie, it already opened in the United Kingdom. People have been asking me when I'm going to see it, but I live in America and I can't help it. It comes out later sometimes. It comes out this Friday. Let me know what you guys think of it if you've seen it already or when you do see it. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.